Hailing and gracing the game as a newcomer as one of the 7 lucky gods that'll be debuting in Medarot S. It is SFJ00 Bentensara with the goddess of luck on her side, coming with the kit of force control, static, microwave, biped legs, and the leg ability of Premacy, which reduces incoming damage if the attacker has the same leg type as the self. Now, honestly, Bentensara, at first glance, we actually have seen teasers of her in previous up to this point, just mostly as art and a concept that was designed by Marin. But this time, we are finally able to see what a kit she has, and boy oh boy, what a kit it is. Force Control is essentially a shooting variant of Metaphor Seal with the exact same effect, so especially as a good counter for those that may use melee, melee guard, melee trap, or so on and so forth. Static, we've seen a pretty fair amount of times at this point, but this will be the first instance of a non-heavy static part. And simply put, static has no base damage, as you see here, because it works essentially like Super Fang in Pokemon. And by that sense, it essentially will always cut the total HP of the part it's damaging down by half. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it is physically incapable of destroying parts under this very same logic and duress. And last but not least, Microwave. This will be the second bot in existence thus far that will be packing such a massively powerful skill. And simply put, Microwave is essentially Hyper Beam plus Sacrifice all rolled into one, where it will get the ×2 and ×3 damage bonuses like Hyper Beam will, the pierce damage as seen here, but it also operates as Sacrifice, meaning upon use of the part breaking, upon use the part will self-destruct and therefore become unusable unless it is repaired. However, it is also worth noting that unlike Sacrifice, Microwave does not draw its base power on remaining HP, but instead on charge bonus, meaning even if the part comes back at 10% HP, it is still fully capable of being used once again at that highest possible damage output that you used the first time. Now honestly, as you see here, Bentensara is packing some pretty solid stats across the board. Almost 5,000 HP for the head, almost 4,000 for the right arm, over 4,000 for the left, and legs at almost 4,400 as well, meaning that she can definitely take a hit and keep on kicking. Her melee resist, on the other hand, definitely not as good as it should be though, at about 924. I'd say arguably if you can stay within 900 to 1,000, that is honestly a pretty nice lower end sweet spot of where you'd want to be. Shoot resist of 1428, however, that is really, really nice, meaning she will have no problems whatsoever combating people from afar and taking hits from incoming long-range combat. With an evade of 1365, however, that actually is very, very handy and works towards Bentensara's advantage, as this allows her to stay very dodgy on the field and potentially dodge or graze a lot of incoming attacks if she's not already incapable or inflicted with the inability to dodge attacks. And a mobility of 891 honestly is still really good too. Honestly, again, we're kind of getting to the Gokudo territory here, who sits at 889. This honestly means for a female type bot, she is going to have an absolutely fantastic set of biped legs you can use just about anywhere really. And with the Premacy leg ability, this is, even if it is a conditional damage reduction, pardon me, it is still a very solid passive to make use of depending on the situation that calls for it. And since a pretty solid chunk of bots in the game are bipedal by nature, this honestly means this ability can be tagged in and used very solidly with pretty decent success rate across the board if you are choosing to use her. As a pure set score, I do have to rate her a pretty solid 7 out of 10, even though she doesn't lack a lot of pierce damage potential and relies solely on Microwave for that. Her base damage is still very, very solid. Force control at about 1200, Microwave base damage at almost 2k just by itself, and static, of course, does not deal damage because it is a fixed number, or rather a fixed percentage in this case. However, one of the biggest disadvantages and drawbacks I do see to Bentensara specifically is the fact that her main form of attacking, which is Microwave, is very Metaforce reliant if you want to deal the highest amount of damage possible with it before it self-destructs and have it fixed. In addition to this, she does not really have a kit that is designed to be Metaforce reliant to benefit that and complement it, because static, as mentioned earlier, is not capable of breaking parts at all, and force control is you can only use 4 times, which means you have to basically know you're going to break apart. And even then, even with a hunter or sniper bait nature metal, you're only going to get 15% of a Metaforce charge filled without actually taking a turn to charge, which honestly does kind of hinder her overall utility just a little bit, but not too much to really hinder, say she's a terrible model, don't use her. No, she is a fantastic model, but this is definitely something that you must consider if you are going to make use of her on the field. As mixed parts, on the other hand, I have to rate her much higher at an 8.5 out of 10. Now, I did mention, however, that Force Control and Static do not have pierce damage for their own reasons, and Microwave, of course, is Metaforce reliant. But if you mix the parts up and use them on different builds, such as, say, Deer Stage's full charge head with Bentensara's microwave cannon, then you could absolutely use it to its fullest advantage very quickly and very easily and absolutely capitalize on it. And the legs, of course, you really can't go wrong with using anywhere, since biped legs have pretty solid terrain coverage across the board naturally, and the Premacy ability, even though it is conditional, is something you can use anywhere and have a pretty solid success rate in having it trigger, since a good chunk of enemy bots, and more or less Medarots in general, will be bipedal in nature.